Hello, everyone. I am going to wait to start until we have some people popping in. Make sure over in the chat area that you tell me your name and where you're from. And this is another installment of Can Kelley Create It? And I have super nervous about this one today. It's making my hands sweat a little bit. Let's see here. I see some people coming in. If one of you could give me a thumbs up on the sound and the picture, make sure everything is nice and clear. Let's see here. Let's see, we have lots of people coming in. I don't see anybody in the chat yet. There's somebody. Hey, Esmeralda. Okay, she's telling me that everything looks good. So my name is Kelley, and I live in South Georgia. And I started this kind of fun little experiment of kind of taking designs that our design team members have created to see if I can recreate it with the supplies that I have. And today was a tough one. So I'll get into that here in just a second. Let's see. Hello, Laura from Canada. Tracy, hello. Tracy's helping me out there. Hello, Shirley from Kansas. Hey, Lori. Okay, so lots of people popping in. Cool. All right, so this is the card, and I don't know if you guys have seen this. So if you have seen this card from Brenda Nolke on any of our social media, can you give me a thumbs up? But I saw this and told Brenda that I have to try to recreate it. It's absolutely gorgeous. Let's see here. The autumn afternoon release. So it uses the farmhouse check background. There you can see that she has ink blended over the top of that heat embossed background. And let's see here. She used the Darling Dahlias and the Blessed Buzzword dies and the stamp set. So that's what I'm going to pull out. She also used some of our older thin frames, the rectangles. And she did some no-line Copic coloring. And I, unfortunately, did not have any inks that would fade out when you do your Copic coloring. So I thought this would be the perfect opportunity to kind of craft along with you guys and chat, because there's a lot of times that we see designs and cards and things that we like, but we don't have the supplies on hand to recreate the exact same look. So I'm going to recreate it today, change up the way I color the flowers and the leaves a little bit, and go from there. All right, let's see. Some of you, hey, Brenda. Okay, so our design team member, Brenda, is in the chat over there. She is the one that created this beautiful card. Brenda, I was just telling how this is the most nervous I have ever been to do a live stream. I have to tell you, my hands are shaking and I'm sweating because it's so beautiful. And I don't want to mess it up. Okay, and I have to tell you, Lisa and Melissa and I were chatting, and this is one of our favorite cards from the autumn afternoon release. So yeah, I just had to recreate it. It's gorgeous. Okay, so I'm going to get started, and this is what I have done. So I'm going to set my little iPad over here aside, and I will refer to that because that's what we do when we find inspiration, right? Is we refer back to the original design. Okay, it may be hard to see on this cardstock, but I have stamped and heat embossed that farmhouse check background just in white over the top of just this plain white. This is the Nina Solar White cardstock. And so this is where I'm going to ink blend. Oh, Brenda, you're so sweet. Okay, so I'm going to get started with this, and then I'm going to get into coloring the flowers. And I'll show you what I did different. For one thing, I don't know that I have ever tried no line Copic coloring. And so Brenda and I were actually chatting this morning because I didn't have the right inks and things like that. So you know what we do? We switch it up and we just make it work. Okay, so I'm going to start blending on. She used mustard seed for the yellow, and then I'm going to go into worn lipstick, and then picked raspberry, and then aged mahogany. Okay, so I'm going to start this side, and I'm going to go kind of in a straight line. It's almost like stripes of color. And so I'm going to keep all this yellow kind of saturated over to this one side, like so. Put the lid on that. And then I probably have to go back and blend over it. Okay, so now for the worn lipstick. Let's see here. And I'm going to take it, and I'm actually going to start it from one of the ends. And like I said, I kind of want to keep it in these little sections that go across. So I'm going to blend on like so. Kind of go into that yellow, and it's going to create an orangey color when it mixes with the yellow and the pink. Okay, so I got that. Now I'm going to go into the picked raspberry. And I'm just using my Honeybee Stamps blending brushes. You can see I'm getting it's kind of hard to see on camera actually, how nice of a smooth blend that you get with those. Let's kind of wipe down my mess. And again, I'm going to go in from one of the sides with the picked raspberry. Blend right into that worn lipstick. And then last but not least, aged mahogany. And I kind of thought Brenda was crazy when she told me that this is the one she used, but when it blends into that picked raspberry, it makes it rich and beautiful. Okay, because this is on one of the sides, I am going to go at it from the side. Make sure all that blends over. Deepen up that aged mahogany, and then I can go back in. This picked raspberry gets really bright, and I like the aged mahogany. Oh man, I'm getting fingerprints. We'll fix them. So I'm going to kind of take it and richen up that picked raspberry. Okay, now let's see here. Let's go back over the mustard seed. Okay. Okay, then we're really getting that warm, glowy orange on that side as it goes into the worn lipstick. Let's see here. And let me wipe again. That's probably how I got the fingerprints. And again, I'm going to take the aged mahogany. I think that ended up being my favorite. And I'm just going to richen up that picked raspberry, and it kind of tones down the pink just a tad. Okay, but now you can see how beautiful that blend is. And then I'm going to take my dry cloth here, and I'm going to wipe off the top of that embossing powder, and it's really going to brighten it up. Okay, So that's looking pretty good. I'm going to pull up Brenda's design one more time and give you a look at that. And you can see how beautiful that blend is back there. Okay, so I'm hoping that when I trim down my cardstock and get everything placed, it's going to look similar to Brenda's. Now, I know because of some of the dies and things that she used, I'm going to trim this panel down quite a bit. So I'm actually going to trim it to 3 3/4 by 5. And that is because, let me hold it up really close here. She has used our stitched and scalloped rectangles right up here to set her blended panel on. And you can see that she has left that stitched edge there, and it adds just a little bitty something there, a little texture there to the sides. And so that's why I'm going to trim it down to 3 3/4 by 5, and it allows that stitched edge to kind of show through. Let's see here. I think if I trim, let's see how much I have to trim off over here. Yeah, I can do that and trim my fingerprints right off. Voila. And then I just have to trim off a little bit from the other side. And then I want by 5. So let's do, and I like to kind of eyeball it to where those the background, and I can always go back and trim off a little bit more if I need to. Let's see where this one's going to end up, but I kind of eyeball it. Let me get it down here where you guys can see it. And I'm going to trim that one right up against that stripe. And then let me take just a sliver off of this end again. Okay. All right, now I've got my background ink blended and trimmed out, and I think it looks pretty good. I got rid of my pesky little fingerprints over there. And now I need to start on the coloring. And like I said before, I did not have the appropriate inks to achieve no line watercoloring look. So what I did is I heat and use my Zig Clean Color Real Brushed markers, and I just tried to match or kind of coordinate the colors that Brenda went with for the design. And so here's that large dahlia. I think I did pretty good getting the colors. Of course, her Copic coloring is going to be much more rich and vibrant, and she is an amazing floral colorer. So yeah, that's what we're going with. So here are my leaves, and I am going to show you how I got that look, and I'm going to color this little blossom that she did, and I actually stamped 2 just in case, because you never know when we might mess up. And let's see here. I'm going to get a little mat to color on. And I should have done this with my ink blending, and I didn't think about it. So it's going to be kind of hard to see just for a second until I start getting some color on it. But I've only used, let's see here. I used 5 markers or 5 Zig little water brushes for the whole thing. And I think I'm going to start with the green parts first. And I'm going to not use any water with these. So I'm going to blend them with the markers just like you would your Copics or your colored pencils or anything like that. And it doesn't, wet down your paper as much. So I'm going to start out with my lightest green, my base color. And I'm going to go over everything that I want green. And by the way, this is watercolor. It's just a cheap watercolor paper that I picked up at Hobby Lobby. But you can use whatever you have on hand. And I'm just swiping in that color, and thank goodness for those little wells that I heat embossed. Add my base color. And I know it's super hard for you guys to see. And I'm going to get all those little parts that are holding that little blossom together. And I think there's one right over here. Okay, so you're starting to see the design come out here. And if I hold this up, you can probably see that embossing powder a little bit better. Okay, Brenda loves zigs too. Bristol with zigs. I can't remember honestly which paper I used. I can't remember if it was watercolor or Bristol. Okay, so next I'm going to go in that I would want dark, kind of just markers. I'm going to go up those little areas. Oops. And here. And here. Okay, now I'm going to take it and I'm going to go all the way down the side. Very carefully. Okay, now I'm going to take that same pale, this is pale green, and this is what I'm going to use just like you would your Copic markers, and I'm actually going to pull the color that I'm not going to go all the way to the base where I want my deepest color. I'm just going to go to where I stopped, and I'm going to pull it from there. And so that leaves the darker color at the base, but then blends and pulls out some of that into the lighter color. So I hope that that is making sense. No water brushes, nothing like that. And I may end up going back in with my mid-tone to richen up this pale just a little bit. Let me go all the way around. Okay, and then I'm going to do the same thing with this stem, and you can see it's moving and pulling it down. And then I'm just going to kind of trace right along that side and pull it out with the pale green. Okay, now let me see if I take my, that's my dark one, my mid green, and go the in between. See if it'll richen it up. And I think it really does. Already kind of damp from the other two colors, and so I'm really not going to have to do a whole lot of blending here. Fill in those little areas, and I'm just going to go right where that darker line was. And now I'm just going to do a simple swipe. Okay, so I think I'm done with that part. My hands are still dirty. Okay, now this is the part I'm going to take for my pinks. I'm going to take the pale rose, which is actually going to be the darker of the two colors. And I'm going to go in and I'm going to add the same flicks here, just like I did to the leaves. This is exactly how I did that large dahlia. Take that one up. And keep going around. And keep going around. Let's get the ones that are tucked in behind here. Okay. Now I'm going to take for the lightest color, this is pale pink. And again, I'm not going to go all the way back down to the base of that dark color. I'm going to start kind of in the middle and then start pulling it out. And you can see how it blends it out, but then it also leaves some of those dark details in there towards the center of the flower. Go, just keep spinning, and there's one that I forgot. Okay, now I'm going to take my heat tool and just give that a little bit of a dry. Okay, now I'm going to go back in with the darkest color and do the tip of the petals. And I'm just going to give it a flick down like this. And I'm not blend the tips out with the lighter color. That one I didn't color. And if you wanted to add more detail, if some of your details like here get washed out, okay, so now I've got this little guy done, and you can see I've even gotten some, I don't know if you guys can see that on camera, but I've even gotten some of my inky fingers on the edges. I'm just going to leave it. I'm going to go with it. I think it's going to blend, hopefully, when we get to the end. Okay, so now I have, let me stick these in here. Now I've got my florals ready. So I've got my small little bud. I've got my 2 leaves, just like Brenda, and then I have my large one, and you can see how those just blend and mix right together. Okay, and I could even, I'm going to do a no-no. I'm going to make it look like it was supposed to have been that way. And of course, the master Brenda did not do this, but I'm going to make mine match. There you go. Her edges are super bright white. Okay, now let's start building. Let's start building. All right, so I have my card base, and I trimmed this down. And here's why I trimmed it down is because when Brenda did her card, and I'm not for sure how she did it, and you know, when we look on Pinterest or see things in pictures, we're not quite sure, but this, I'm going to achieve the same look. So I have my stitched and scalloped rectangle cut, and this is the A2 sized one. So I trimmed my card base down so you cannot see it from the front side. All I want to see are those cute little scallops on the side. So that's why I've trimmed my card base down. So I'm going to add my inky black background right on top of this. And I'm just going to use some of our glue if I can get mine to, and I may be using my, let's get this guy. Okay, now I'm going to line it up, and then I'm going to be able to see those stitched lines right there around the sides. And I like that touch that Brenda added. Okay, so here I've got my background. Okay. My hands are still sweating, Brenda. Okay, now I've got, instead of adding adhesive to this part, I'm going to add it to this part, and then I know nothing is going to be out over the sides. And then I'm going to lay it, and I want to kind of make sure that everything is covered up. That way, when I close it, you can just see that cute little scallop all the way around the sides. And then I open it and I still have really nice area to write my message in. I'm going to leave that there because my workspace is dirty. Okay, next is our thin frame die. So Brenda used a thin frame die, and you can see once I pop that on there, it's just going to kind of set the scene. It just adds just a little something for our flowers to nestle into. And let's see here. I left my glue open, which is a big no-no. And I have my handy dandy holder, so I'm kind of kicking myself that I did that. And so I'm just going to open up my glue. Okay, I'm going to be super sparse with the adhesive here because I do not want it to drip out onto my ink blended background. So I'm just going to kind of dab it. Just a little bit. And you can hardly see that on there, but it's there. Okay, now I'm going to be really careful and kind of set this down. I don't want to shimmy it around a whole bunch because I don't want to smear my adhesive. Okay, and I think that's looking really good. Okay, let's see here. Oh, somebody's having trouble. I hope you get it fixed up. This is how you craft and not have to clean up. There's no telling, let's see, especially on light embossing powder. Okay, you guys are having a whole conversation. I'm just going to keep crafting. I'm going to keep going over here. Okay, so I'm going to pull up Brenda's card again. She has used our Blessed Buzzword die cuts. So she cut a white shadow and then a yellow Blessed scripty word. Now, I had trouble matching colored cardstock, so I actually took that mustard seed Distress Oxide ink and I colored my own cardstock. That way it would match perfectly. Brenda can tell us maybe in the chat if she used her oxides to color that or if she had a piece of, coordinating cardstock. So I'm going to go ahead and get those glued together, and then I'm going to start adhering all of my florals onto the background that I have. Let's see here. So I've got my white shadow, and then this is the word that I just blended on some of that mustard seed so it would match perfectly. And I'm going to, again, dot the adhesive right back here behind, kind of sparingly. It doesn't take a lot. And let's see here. Give it some little dots in the thicker areas. Come on. Okay. Now I'm just going to get this guy added on and start tapping it down. Can kind of shimmy it just a little bit with that liquid adhesive and then pat it down. Oops. Okay. There we go. All right, so now I've got my blessed word, and I went ahead and stamped. She used Blessed to Know You, and again, I used that mustard seed ink on white paper, and so everything coordinates together. And then I think now I'm ready to start adhering my floral pieces. So I'm going to start with the Big Mama dahlia. And I've got some foam tape. I'm just going to, I want to leave the edges kind of open because then I can tuck in the leaves and things. And let's see here. I think I want to go like so. Give that a tap, and then I'm going to take my little bloom. Again, I think I'm going to add a little bit of foam tape here, and then tuck the stem down in. And I'm going to trim a little bit off. Okay, just like that. Okay, I'm kind of liking it. Now I'm going to go with my leaves, and I'm going to add foam tape to closer to the tips and leave the bases where they may lay a little bit more flat. Okay. All right, that's looking pretty good. So what do you guys think so far? I think it's doing pretty good so far. Okay, as you can tell, I'm still holding my breath. All right, now the blessed word. So we're going to go right down here with that blessed word. And again, I'm just going to take my liquid adhesive. Let's see, the embossing on the flower looks great with the embossing on the background. Thank you, Brenda. Let's see, I just found a cardstock. Okay, so she's talking about the yellow. She found a cardstock that was close to the mustard seed. I couldn't find one, Brenda, that didn't look, it was either way too dark and way too mustardy, almost a brown, or it was way too bright yellow. And so that's why I just did it this way. And then I knew it was going to match. Okay, I need to hold this guy just for a second. Make sure he's nice and straight. Okay, and then I have my To Know You. And I know she slipped it right under the S. And it kind of hangs over. And I'm actually going to look at her design again. Let's see here. If my iPad, no, my iPad died. So we're going to wing it. Okay. Let's see here. So I know I want to trim it about right like so. Yep. And then I'm going to add a little bit of liquid adhesive. I don't want to glue this end over here because I know I want to trim it again. Not too far. Okay, now I'm going to be very careful and I'm going to trim it right at stitch line. Okay, phew. Okay, I think I, now for the centers, Brenda, what did you use on the center of your flower that gave it that really pretty gold look? I couldn't find anything in my stash that looked like yours, so I actually used these Nuvo vintage drops in yellow brick roller and just filled in. I thought it was kind of a, it coordinated with the yellow of the blessed and the mustard seed here. But I'd love to know what you used for a yellow gel pen. I tried that. I got these really fancy little gel pens, and I couldn't find one that that looked right. So I'm going to go, she took her dots all the way up, and I'm not squeezing this. I'm barely like touching it to the paper. But she brought hers out kind of like so. Okay. And then I think I'm going to leave it like that. Okay, Brenda, friend, how did I do? Oh, I can sweat now. I'm sweating bullets. Let's see here. Let me go back and look at the comments. Yes, this is really pretty. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Lisa. Yes, Lisa and I were chatting about your card, Brenda. Thank you, Brenda. Let's see here. Too blessed to be stressed. Thank you, Nicole. You are so sweet. Okay, that's Brenda. Let's see here. Did the live end? I hope it's still going. Yes, especially on light embossing powder. Here, question. I heard that you can't use Copics on an embossing. Nicole, maybe somebody answered that for you in there. You know, sometimes I use my Copics around embossing powder. I'm just extremely careful. I just don't really scribble over the top of it. And, you know, I'm kind of a rebel rule breaker. And so let's see here. Would never thought of what a gorgeous, I know. That's why I had to ask. So somebody asked about the blend in colors. I would have never thought about that either. And so I had to message Brenda and say, what exactly did you use? Because it's absolutely gorgeous. I would not have done the mustard seed into this really rich eggplanty color that we have going on over here. Thank you, Janet. She said the flower is fabulous. Love the zig pins. And you know what? I thought that was fun. I was going to try to totally recreate Brenda's design with the Copic markers. But, you know, sometimes we just do not have the supplies on hand. When you see a picture or when you see a video on YouTube or something like that, you know, we don't all have the supplies. And get some of that fading ink, because I haven't tried to try the no line Copic coloring, but I think this worked out well, and it is similar to Brenda's. I used the inspiration, but it's not an exact copy. Let's see here. All right. Does anybody have any questions here? The Dahlia. Yep, darling dahlias. We have friends from Southern. Oh, it makes it so rich and beautiful. Let's see. Okay, I don't think any more comments. So I think I'm going to sign off and go check out Brenda's Instagram. So she's at My Paper Cut Creation on Instagram. Lots of fabulous designs. And that, of course, is where I took today's design. And thank you, Brenda, for letting me use you as inspiration and borrow your design. I absolutely love it. And then I will see you guys next week. Next Tuesday is our evening live stream over on Facebook. And then I'll be back here next Thursday on YouTube. Okay, you guys. Brenda, thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I appreciate it. And thank you for the inspiration. Thank you, Nicole. Thanks, everyone who helped out answering questions. And I'll see you guys next week. Happy crafting, guys.